Okay, did we see or did we not see homophobia at the 2014 Emmy Awards? I think it was clear when we saw The Normal Heart win award after award that it was supposed to win, reminding me that maybe we are seeing the return of Brokeback Mountain at the Oscars and the homophobia that took it down in the Best Picture race. Some of my editors have the gall not to agree with me, and we've been having nuclear email exchanges back and forth over the past 24 hours about this issue, and I want us all here now to powwow and discuss this openly and frankly. This is going to be a real slugfest because I had passionate disagreement with what these guys said on their Smash Fest the other day, as they called it. I even wrote down all of their comments so I can pin them to a wall and make them accountable today. So we're going to have some fun here as we watch them squirm. But first, before we even get into all of this, let me set up the argument. And that is, The Normal Heart went into the Emmys expecting to win Best TV Movie, Best Screenplay. Matt Bomer was supposed to win, just as he and The Normal Heart had won TV Movie at the Critics' Choice Awards. And then it had a shot to win for Julia Roberts and for Mark Ruffalo, etc. It ended up losing to, in the most cases, it won the top award, but it ended up losing to a really bad episode of Sherlock called His Last Vow. And I think that got all these nominations because during the popular vote of the first round of Emmy voting, the voters thought it was the wedding episode, which is really terrific. Wedding Vow, His Last Vow. In fact, it's this absolutely horrible episode. Now, Daniel, we all think you're reasonable here. I don't even know what side of this issue you come in on. Ralph and Rob disagree with me. Who's right here? Did we see the return of Brokeback Mountain homophobia at a Hollywood peer group award?
I think we might have, and forgive me for being very diplomatic. I know everything I say can and will be used against me. I'm a kill. But it might and it might not have. And the reason I think it's easy to say with the Oscars with Brokeback Mountain because we had people like Tony Curtis coming out and Chris Borgnine coming out and actually saying I'm not voting, I'm not watching, I'm not voting for this gay movie. And voters at the Oscars vote in a block for every category. That's why they're so predictable. The Emmys, though, you have different peer group panels that are relatively small, voting in each category. I don't know how much they're communicating with each other, if at all. Probably not much. So, these are different groups of people independently coming to their own conclusions, and maybe that's actually even a stronger reinforcement that all of these little groups decided to say no to The Normal Heart. But it's hard to really parse out their reasoning for all of those. I mean, they could have gone to Fargo in some of these categories that The Normal Heart lost, but they went to Sherlock. And so it's hard to say. But there is history, there is precedent, as you've mentioned. We've seen a lot of straight people win for playing gay. We've seen a lot of that happens often. And here you have a gay story told by and large by gay filmmakers, acted by not entirely, but a largely gay cast. So maybe voters just they didn't like having the finger pointed out at them instead of them pointing fingers out at everyone else.
Right, and let's make that distinction here, which is that we're not saying that gay roles and gay things don't win at the Emmys. They do, but the most insulting of all, it's the equivalent of blackface winning. In other words, we see Michael Douglas winning for the awful Behind the Candelabra, which you, Marcus Dixon, our other editor, think is an example of how gay-friendly the Emmys are. I think it's an example of the Emmys at their worst, and we'll get into that in a moment. But the distinction we need to make here is not Sean Hayes winning an Emmy for Will and Grace, ha ha ha, it's the gay role. There are 3 cases I can think of gay people actually winning for gay roles. 2 of them are insulting, Sean Hayes and Leslie Jordan for Will and Grace. The other one gave us hope last year when Dan Bucatinsky won for an actual sensitive gay role that took you to the places of pain in that character. And that's the point we're making. We're not talking about Oh, and the band Played On won Best TV Movie. We're not talking about Elk and the Candelabra one. Those had almost or Angels in America, all straight actors in that thing. We're talking about those rare times, like Brokeback Mountain at the Oscars, The Normal Heart here, where gay people play gay people and they take you to a deep, dark place that scares the F out of people. And let me just end here with one setup. None of you guys in your Smash Fest, and then Rob, I'm coming to you first. None of you guys in your Smash Fest mentioned the one outrage of the night that proves, to my mind, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that what the horror that we're dealing here with. And what I'm talking about is the Screenplay Award. And maybe you kids are too young to know what The Normal Heart is, but let me explain something to you. In 1985, at the height of the AIDS epidemic, The Normal Heart arrived on an off-Broadway stage, and it was an alarm bell to the world saying somebody's got to do something about this. Stonewall took place in 1969, and people could still hide in the closet. The revolution hadn't happened, but when AIDS hit, you couldn't hide anymore. And suddenly your brother turned out to be gay, and your uncle turned out to be gay, and your teacher turned out to be gay. People go, oh my God. And it forced the coming out of a social class and forced the straight world to have sympathy with them, and they refused. Cardinal Cole from the pulpit of the Archbishop of Philadelphia decreed nationally, this is God's vengeance on homosexuality. Good, we're well rid of them. Cardinal John J. O'Connor from St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York kept denouncing gays, saying, basically, good, let it go. In more than 90% of America, it was illegal to have gay sex. The sodomy laws were still there. And in 1986, the Supreme Court of the United States said the government can come into your house with your door locked, your windows down, and throw you in jail if you're having gay sex. It was a very different world back then. Ronald Reagan in the White House was doing nothing about AIDS. Suddenly, everybody was coming out and didn't want to. It was under the guise of this horror. And Larry Kramer started two organizations that changed the world on this subject. He started ACT UP and he started GMHC, and he's such an obnoxious man, he was thrown out of both of them. And he was so angry to be thrown out of both of them, he wrote a stage play and put it on a stage in New York that pissed everybody off. This is literature. This is history. The Normal Heart is something that will be performed forever. And then the quest came on. When is this movie going to be made? How is anybody going to make a movie out of this highly flawed play? You know, I'll have issues with it. And everyone said it can't be made because Larry's such a hothead. No one's going to let them fix this thing because there are obviously things that have to be fixed. Barbra Streisand took the film rights. Can you imagine Larry Kramer and Streisand, those two divas going at it? There was no hope for them ever to resolve that. No movie was made. Decade after decade after decade was passing. And The Normal Heart was not being made a film. And finally, Ryan Murphy stepped in with this sacred text and said, I will do it. I can handle Larry. And if you watch Daniel and my video with Ryan Murphy, the first thing I say to him is, how the hell did you tame Larry? And he tells us, Ryan, says it, tells us the story of how he got the screenplay made. And now I would say it's a masterpiece. It has an 85 score at Metacritic. The Los Angeles Times, the TV Guide give it a 100% score. Hollywood Reporter and many other media give it a 90% score. And it lost the Screenplay Award to his Last Vow. Rob, come on! Am I right to be outraged by this?
Tom, first of all, excuse my French, I love your passion, okay? And it's going to be hard for me to make any point after you've just given us that kind of passion. But I have to say this, that they even trotted out Larry Kramer to the Emmys. Everyone thought he was going to win that prize. And when Stephen Moffat, who, by the way, is also an openly gay writer, finally won an Emmy for the wrong thing, we were scratching our heads. Okay, now the panel that voted for that particular award either didn't like The Normal Heart, or really loved Sherlock, or are slightly homophobic. I don't know. It's hard for me to make that argument just because it didn't win. But where is the evidence that that particular panel does not like gays? That was the point I think we were trying to make.
Nobody is saying they don't like gays. Let's define homophobia. The hyperbole we've been using at Gold Derby, do the Hollywood voters hate gays, is over the top, yes. Well, homophobia is fear of gay stuff. Now, the most brilliant thing you said in that Smash Fest, where I just applauded you, was you had the guts to say what we know is true, and that is the reason they didn't vote for Bomer is because he was naked and he is gay and it was the real thing and there's sex and it scared the hell out of them. That is homophobia. It doesn't mean they hate gays. It creeped them out.
Yeah, and Tom, that's the key, I think, and that's why I made that point, because of people that I've spoken to about gay issues or gay films, the reaction I usually get is, no, I can't watch that. I just couldn't bear to see two men having sex. And I hear that from people, and so I took that on board and thought that's got to be one of the reasons why Brokeback Mountain didn't win the Oscar, even though they were, I assume, straight people pretending or playing gay roles, and The Normal Heart, where you had some straight people and some gay people playing gay roles and having very graphic sex with lots of nudity. Now, that's got to have turned people off. That's homophobia. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I made that fucking point because I said, if you are afraid of watching people have sex, no matter who they are or what gender or what sexuality, and you're afraid of that or you can't handle that, then that's your problem. And you are bringing that to your voting, and therefore that has informed what you voted for. So I think that's a valid point. But I just had a problem with the overall generalization for the whole of the Emmys itself. That's all.
Ralph, you really infuriated me with your generalization that, so Matt Bomer doesn't win an Emmy now, so it's ridiculous to call everybody homophobes. Come on, that is an indefensible comment and you know it.
Well, I was infuriated by the overall statement that all of Hollywood hates gays, just because of that. So that's indefensible as well.
I can see.
You can't generalize both of them and expect one to be right. Look, Matt, you just missed. If Ryan Murphy watches this, Tom, if they remake The Normal Heart in 2 years or something, you should be up for Mark Ruffalo's part, because that passionate speech that he just gave would win you the fucking Emmy over Billy Bob or anybody else in that category. It was great, and it's awesome that you do have the passion. I know it hits a personal spot with you, which is why you're so passionate. And forgive us, because you're right, we did not speak about the screenplay thing at all. Like I mentioned, my interpretation of that thread from the first one, because Bomer's name is mentioned in the first part of that thread, is that everybody was pissed off that Matt Bomer did not win the Emmy. And that's what we kind of focused on, because that's what the whole thread was going off of. We didn't go off of Wyman's article. We didn't go off of yours, which I'm sure mentioned the screenplay. But it's also to its defense, I mean, I understand how passionate you are at the screenplay, but I loved Fargo. And you said yourself, when you first sent us or had us get the screeners for Fargo, you said, this is brilliant. This is a great adaptation. I probably, honestly, if I was a voter, would have voted for Fargo, but I loved Fargo. And I completely understand the message in The Normal Heart, and I'm not diminishing it in any way, but I think it's just a term of preference, and Brokeback is, I agree, is inexcusable. There's no way you can defend that, and there's obviously literature out there that says that it's indefensible. But my problem with the whole thing, why I was so adamant about it, was because of the overall statement that all of Hollywood is homophobic. Because if that's true, like we mentioned, there's racism out there in Hollywood. There's ageism in Hollywood. There's everything against people's weight. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you can label, but you can't generalize and say just because The Normal Heart now lost screenplay and lost for Matt Bomer that all of a sudden everybody is homophobic in Hollywood. That's the part that got me. If it would have just said, like the Wyman email that was sent, that, are we saying all of Hollywood is? No, of course not. That's idiotic to say. But is there actual homophobia in Hollywood? Sure. I mean, that is a fine statement. That you can defend, and that you have defended, and you have made a great point of in your writing. I read again this morning your piece, and I think everybody else should, because that kind of stuff sticks out. But the broader statement of it all is what got me, and that's why I think I don't think you can defend that.
Nobody was saying that all of Hollywood is homophobic.
Sure they were.
I wasn't. I was saying that the majority of the voters here, we caught them being homophobic. The majority of voters. Look, I don't believe there is such thing as a best picture. I don't believe there's a such thing as a best actor at any of these show business awards. I think the reason we love them, I think the reason they're fascinating, is that they tattle on what is in the deep, dark recesses of the souls of the titans of the industry of entertainment. In other words, in 2005, 2006, when Brokeback Mountain lost to Crash after having won 26 Best Picture awards leading up to that night, an unprecedented sweep, except for Schindler's List, and then lost that night after it won Screenplay, after it won Director. I think it was telling us what some of the members, like Ernest Borgnine and Tony Curtis, were already telling us, which is, I'm not going to embrace a movie that has real gay romantic love in it. It creeps me out. And I think we saw that again with the Screenplay example for with Normal Heart. It creeps them out. So many of the straight people cannot get into an empathetic situation with gay people. They can watch funny gay stuff. Straight people can play gay roles, and they get that, and they will reward it because it's not real. But when you get real, there's only one example I can think of in Emmy history, and that's Dan Vukatensky winning in the acting awards last year, or the rare occasion like Charlie Bright mentioned the other day in the Smash Fest that you guys had, where he went back to an early Frost winning the Screenplay Award, something that really meant it, where we actually see them cross over. Otherwise, that I don't think you can use that other stuff as evidence. And Matt, let me bring you in here because you're next. Let me give you a pounding here, because what upset me so much about what you said the other day is, let me quote it here in the Smash Fest. At the Oscars, these Emmy roles would have been slam dunks. We see Matthew McConaughey winning as an AIDS person at the Emmys, at the Oscars for Dallas Buyers Club. First of all, that's not an openly gay role, so that doesn't equate. But then you start making this argument, which I think is a confusion and a missing of the point. We saw Sean Penn playing for Harvey Milk, and other A-list movie stars win. The point I'm making is that is evidence of the homophobia, that they will not let gay people become A-list stars and let them play the gay roles. In other words, it was inconceivable that Behind the Candelabra last year that an openly gay actor would have gotten that role of Liberace. Do you see the point?
Yeah, I do see the point there, and I think the point I was trying to articulate there was that in the Oscars, we've seen lead roles for awareness around these issues. We've seen Harvey Milk with Sean Penn, and the other on your side with Matthew McConaughey that raised awareness for issues of AIDS and issues of homosexuality. We won at the Oscars in those lead races, and I was thinking when I made those comments more of the Mark Ruffalo loss than of the Matt Bomer loss. I may have cited both when I was talking about it, I can't remember, but I was. Yeah, and I completely agree with you that they're straight actors playing in Sean Penn's case, a straight actor playing an openly gay person, and yeah, I think when you see gay people playing gay people, it's not as embraced by the Academy and industry. They're not as impressed by the acting or something, and I think there's definitely some homophobia on that front.
Like, this is what we see at the Oscars, for example, when gay roles win. We see the characters have to die a hideous death, so they have to be played by. Are we all getting static? Can you all hear feedback?
Yeah.
I'm not, so it's probably from my end, I guess.
Yeah. Mute your microphone. Good, thanks, Matt. All right. This is what we see at the Oscars, for example. We see Christopher Plummer most recently as or we saw Jared Leto last year in an LGBT role. In his case, when, of course, he has to die a hideous death on screen there at Dallas Buyers Club. Christopher Plummer in Beginners dies of cancer. Sean Penn gets shot, another straight man. William Hurt in Kiss of the Spider-Man, the first gay role to win an Oscar, not only gets shot, his body's hurled in the dumpster. Tom Hanks gets AIDS, of course, and on and on and on and on. Yeah. At the Emmys, we see Michael Douglas, etc., having to die of AIDS and a hideous death, and it's so insulting. So when you get something like The Normal Heart that is sensitive and honest, and even though Mark Ruffalo was the one straight actor who played a gay role there, even with all of that, there was something special and magical and wonderful about it, and the voters just couldn't go there. And if they went with Fargo, which was your point, right, Ralph, I would say, okay, 4 of our experts actually said Fargo would win the Screenplay Award. Everybody else said Normal Heart. You know what? I almost could have bought that. But the fact that it went to Sherlock is what's so infuriating here. Who has a thought here?
So Tom, what about the Dunstan the Harvey Milk win for writing at the Oscars? Where does that stand with you, Dustin Lance Black? Because he's openly gay, and he won the writing award for a gay film themed film that brought out rights and was also semi-controversial. Where does that fall in your spectrum then?
Well, it's widely believed that he did not write Milk, that he did the first screenplay and then won his arbitration with the Writers Guild to keep his name on it, when in fact Ron Nicewire, the guy who wrote Philadelphia, actually wrote it. That's the allegation anyway. But he's managed to parlay it, if that's true, into a successful career. I just don't buy these roles when played by straight people. I don't think they're emotionally honest. I find the behind the candelabra thing so offensive last year. Back in the days when Liberace was famous and on TV and had one of the top viewed shows and was a pop culture icon, which we can't even fathom today. He seems campy and ridiculous to us. He was forever plagued with, "Why aren't you married, Liberace?" And he would get on TV and go, "Oh, well, because I can't decide which woman," or "My mother's the number one woman in my life." It was hilarious. Everybody knew the reason, of course. He was accused openly of being gay. He sued. Now, a really great movie could have been made of Liberace's life if you had cast, let's say, a real gay person in the role. I mean, let's say it had gone all out and had actually explored the dark recesses of his repressed soul of that time in the 1950s and 60s when he was such a huge star. They didn't do that. HBO gave us this gross cartoon of an old lecherous fiend preying on young meat, and then who gets his comeuppance in the end and dies of AIDS. And he is just a pariah. And he was all those things. But the fact that we didn't see the sympathetic side, that they didn't go there, is what is so upsetting. Yeah. And rarely, every now and then, when something actually goes there, it loses.
Yeah, Tom, I think I can't believe I'm agreeing with you now on so many points, because I was ready to come in swinging, but I've got to say this, right? I think you've made a very valid point. There's two points I want to raise. One, I'm sick and tired of seeing straight actors who play gay being called brave. That is so ridiculous. It's bullshit. I want to call bullshit on that, because if you saw a white actor playing black or Asian, that would be ridiculed and criticized and controversial, and yet for some reason it's okay for all these straight A-list actors to come out and play gay and play dying of AIDS, and they get awards and feted and heralded. That gives me the shits. And so when we finally do see gay actors playing openly gay roles and they're not just as heralded, I can imagine that would sting really hard. And that's the issue with Matt Bomer, and that's what we focused on, because it was his loss that really stung for most of us. Most of us who thought he would win in a heartbeat. His performance was so amazing, and just there was nothing like it on TV last year, and he still lost to Martin Freeman in Sherlock. It didn't make sense, and we all thought it's either because he's way too pretty or because he's openly gay, playing openly gay, in the nude, having sex. And so there was that issue. On the other hand, I think the point to be made here is that Hollywood and the world at large have a problem with seeing men in love with each other or women in love with each other on TV and on screens. It's okay if they're dying of AIDS. It's okay if they're, fighting the good fight for, their cause. But as soon as they start kissing or as soon as they start falling in love, people have a problem with it. I think that's the key.
Right, and if they mean it, and the fact that Matt Bomer is gay in real life, he meant it, and that really creeped them out. Who has seen Sherlock: His Last Vow? Matt, have you seen that installment?
You're on mute.
Unmute.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I've seen some of it. I haven't seen the whole, because it was like 3 episodes of 90 minutes or something.
Right. Who has seen it? Daniel, unmute your thing again here. We're having a feedback problem. Daniel, did you see who's seen His Last Vow? Any of you guys?
I've seen it, yeah.
All right, so is there some greatness there I'm missing? Or as I said, I can understand the wedding episode winning. I can understand maybe even that first one winning. But that one I thought was so bad. I mean, the scene that I find so ridiculous, of course, is Mary Watson's love is finally comes up against the guy, her nemesis, and instead of shooting him and killing him, she shoots Sherlock, and they come up with a preposterous reason. And the whole premise of the episode is the fact that they have got the goods on Mary, that she has an evil, sinister past, and these two investigators, Watson and Sherlock, who have in their hands the hard drive of the information, decide not even to look at it because, well, Watson loves Mary. I mean, so preposterous. And that's like two examples of ridiculous things in there. Is there greatness in there? Was this Emmy at all deserved? Were these Emmys at all deserved?
I think they were. You know, I found it strange, not necessarily because it won, but because it won for this and not for Scandal in Belgravia 2 years ago. And it's not because this episode was bad. I think this episode works. I think it works better in the context of the entire season. So in those 3 episodes, you see the build-up, you see the relationship with Mary, you see, you know, the relationship between between Watson and Sherlock develop over the season, and then it pays off in that episode. So I did think it was very good. I just thought it was odd timing that suddenly all of these, you know, categories, all of these panels, you know, viewing independently decided this is the Sherlock year when it had just as many nominations 2 years ago. It was just as good, and the competition wasn't as steep. I mean, it really, if it lost 2 years ago, it really should have lost to, I mean, you know, Matt Bomer should have won. I don't think he did anything less brilliant than what Jared Leto did. In fact, if I were to put them side by side, I'd probably vote for Bomer. You know, it just seems like odd timing. I just don't know why Sherlock now, and I love Sherlock. I'm happy that Stephen Moffat has an Emmy. I sort of wish it were for Doctor Who instead. You know, Martin Freeman, I'm glad he has an Emmy, though that should have been for Fargo. So it's just sort of, you know, but I do think it's true what's been said. I think the ultimate point is that Hollywood likes gays politically, but not romantically. You know, when it comes to standing up for gay rights in the abstract, you will see, and the band Played On win. You will see Angels in America win, and The Normal Heart winning Best TV Movie. But The Normal Heart, at its heart, no pun intended, is a love story much more than a lot of those other movies are. It is a really affectionate love story made by gay men, and yeah, that probably made some voters uncomfortable. I agree.
Ralph, I love the fact that when you guys were talking the other day, you mentioned Will and Grace's win as Best Series in addition to Sean Hayes, and you know, I think the Sean Hayes win is an example of you know, the worst of the Emmys, that they would reward those ha-ha-ha roles. But I love the fact that you mentioned Will and Grace winning for Best Series, because that gave us hope, looking back in those days, that they would reward such a thing. But do you remember that Will, Eric McCormick, was straight, that the character was not allowed to have a serious boyfriend and was not allowed to kiss a man? Do you remember those things? At least initially. I think later on in the series.
Yeah, later on it did. Yeah. I mean, I agree to a point about the Sean Hayes win. I know he was a caricature, but he won for the second season, and the 2 episodes that he submitted was one where he was coming out in the Thanksgiving episode, where I don't think he was over the top. It took a very serious tone of him coming out, and he became more of a slapstick kind of cartoony guy as the season went on, which is why I don't think he won after that, even though he was nominated for the remainder of the series. And so, but back to the Sherlock thing as well, and not to anger you anymore, Tom, but let's also not forget that Sherlock won 7 Emmys. It was the most awarded series of that night, and it's not like it won 3 awards just to block out The Normal Heart. It didn't win writing. It didn't win Freeman and Cumberbatch just to piss everybody off. I mean, it had, at the Creative Arts, you know, Tom, you know, because we all emailed each other, we were all thinking, God, is Sherlock really, like, are people really liking Sherlock? It won 3 or 4 Creative Arts Emmys, then here it goes, and it wins 3 other big ones. It's not like there wasn't a pattern, and at some point, I'm sure we were all thinking, holy crap, Sherlock is probably going to take miniseries now, just because of the sweep that it looked like it was on, but The Normal Heart eventually won. So I don't think that we can bash on Sherlock too much. And again, on Metacritic, it is rated better than Fargo, and it is better rated than The Normal Heart. So apparently people liked it more than we did.
And that's not true. That's not true. This season does have an 88 for Sherlock. I checked before this.
Yeah.
And it Sherlock has, I mean, and Noble Heart had 85, but the 88 score for Sherlock is over all 3 episodes, and I think that the power of the wedding, etc. You know, we would all agree that it gets extra points there. I don't see individual scores for His Last Vow, and I think His Last Vow actually wins a lot of those crafts awards because it has some spectacular crafty scenes in it. It has a helicopter scene. It has an airplane on the runway scene. It's got that gorgeous glass house that the villain's in at the end. And it has all of these great kind of art direction, editing, cinematography elements to it that were very impressive. I think the story was a little weak, though.
Well, that's why Sherlock should be in the miniseries category and not in the movie category, and that's probably another problem as well. Tom, can I ask you as well, do you believe that if you think the Normal Heart suffered because of homophobia, do you think that's you can then use that argument to say Laverne Cox didn't win and Jesse Tyler Ferguson
thank you for that. Yes, that's exactly what the point is here. Jesse Tyler Ferguson is the other evidence we have. Now, here is somebody who's the episode he submitted was where he's confronting his father. Why won't you come to your son's gay wedding? Dad, come on, this is the man I love. And actually, Ed O'Neill has quite a powerful speech there. If he had been nominated, I'm sure he would have submitted that and could have won. But Jesse Tyler Ferguson gets nominated all the time and can't win because he's a gay man, we know, playing a gay role, and he means it. It's really raw stuff. And what makes his losses so insulting every year is that, like this year, he loses to his co-star, Ty Burrell, who doesn't act in drag, or Eric Stonestreet winning twice before, and of course, he's straight in real life. They can give his gay lover, who's straight, 2 Emmys, especially when he dresses up as a clown in one of them. And so there's all of this over and over and over and over and over again, evidence of that. But the Laverne Cox thing, thanks for mentioning that. I think it's really profound evidence from this year. And I know all 3 of you guys are going to be, 4 of you are going to be furious at me saying this because I know you all disagree, especially Ralph, because I'm going to blast his buddy Uzo here. But I think, I'm not going to blast her, but I'm going to say that it was obvious to Chris Beecham and myself when we watched these episodes and began a conversation unaffected by knowing that your other opinions at that point. And Chris and I were on the phone one night, and he said, wow, you know, that Laverne Cox thing, she's the whole episode, and it's magnificent. Her struggle with her LGBT, you know, with her sex change, and all, what a deeply felt, amazing performance. And it was big and powerful and impressive and raw in the same way that LGBT stuff rarely goes on TV. And who did she lose to? The cartoony Uzo. Crazy eyes! It has 3 scenes. She pees on the floor. La 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 la. It goes through the thing and skating with the Emmy. I don't know Uzo's own real sexual orientation. Maybe it's incidental in this case. But we know Laverne Cox means it, and you know, and is a transsexual in real life. Ralph, I'm offended that Laverne lost. I think there's evidence here, but I'm sure you disagree that your buddy Uzo deserved to win. She may be watching. You better be careful.
I know, right? Well, I think if you look back on our Slugfest, just not with you involved, but the editor Slugfest on comedy supporting actress, we all had the same feeling, Tom. We all thought, holy shit, Laverne Cox was amazing in the episode. She was damn great in the episode. She had some awesome scenes. It was all about her. But to Chris Beecham's own point, you can't win a comedy award if you're not funny. And she just wasn't funny. She was very dramatic. And Uzo at least had, you're right, she had 3 scenes, but in those 3 scenes, they were very memorable because she was laugh out loud funny in those. And I mean, I think if we were talking drama guest actress, I think Laverne Cox should have, in my opinion, beat Allison Janney. I think she was awesome, and I think that tape would have been perfect for her. But and I don't really buy too much that one as much as I do agree with you on the Jesse Tyler Ferguson one, because as you guys probably know, I was saying he was a lock. I was championing that guy probably more than any of the other editors. I thought his tape was excellent that he submitted, and he had 2 episodes in there, and I think it's absolute, I don't know what the hell happened, but I think it's bullcrap that he didn't win that Emmy. I thought he was just great in the episode that he submitted, and so that one I'll definitely give you. But the Laverne Cox one, you know, and same with the Matt Bomer one. I mean, you agreed with Chris when he brought it up in your guys' post-Emmy rant, which was, you know, Chris brought up the whole, they got to see 2 Martin Freemans in that panel there, and that could be how Bomer lost, and at least that gives it some credence. I don't think it was all because
it doesn't give it credence. It doesn't give it credence. It explains a kind of fluke how it won, but people who care about justice can still be outraged that it's the wrong reason it won, because he shouldn't have been, right?
Sure.
And by the way, you and Chris always say in this BS about comedy has to win comedy awards. Tell that to Edie Falco's and that Emmy she holds for Nurse Jackie. Matt.
Who says that? I don't say that.
Cynthia Nixon and Sarah Jessica Parker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Toni Collette.
Do you have any thoughts here, Matt?
Yeah, I think one thing we need to count is like on one issue, when we look at the political side of things, we see Hollywood very supportive of the homosexual community and things. But I guess it's also like who's vocal and in what ways. And I think you do, it's something I didn't think about the other day, you do have the anonymity of the ballot box when you're voting for an award. And you do have older members voting that stay at home, maybe not the ones that are vocal in the media and television and things like that. This is where you really can, if you are homophobic, and I don't think everyone who voted in these panels was homophobic, and I don't think everyone who voted for Sherlock was homophobic, but I do think that it's very easy if you are homophobic to not vote for the normal heart.
Do you think we saw real evidence for homophobia at the Emmys this year?
I think it was concerning. So I think there probably was some evidence, especially with Matt Bomer, who's a gay actor playing a gay actor playing a gay character in a film like this that has some sort of quite intense scenes, for want of a better word, who was far and away the front runner. We were all saying on takes he had it in the bag. For him to come up short, I think, and for the Screenplay award too. I think so. I also think there's two things. I think them not winning, I think, is evidence of homophobia. I don't think Sherlock winning is necessarily evidence of homophobia, because there were four other things that there's a reason they ticked Sherlock and not one of the other four nominees. Like, I think we were surprised. We're surprised that Sherlock won as many awards as it did, and for some reason, Sherlock appealed to the Academy. People voting wanted to tick it off in awards. But yeah, I think the fact that they lost is definitely. I think, especially with Ruffalo, I'm a bit less convinced, because I think that was a bit of a more open race. But with supporting actor and screenplay, which we thought we had it in the bag, and that's where it wasn't just straight actors, but Matt Bomer is homosexual and things like that. I think, yeah, that's my thought on it.
There's some evidence. That's all I'm saying. So Daniel, you're next. Did we witness evidence this year? Do you agree with the premise that we witnessed some evidence this year of some homophobia at the Emmys? Yes or no?
At least enough to be concerned. It may be in the backs of, and that's sort of where everything happens. I think when we talk about homophobia, when we talk about racism, when we talk about all those things, we're thinking too much of this sort of outsized, caricature of discrimination. Like, I hate gays, I hate black people, and all that sort of stuff. When the stuff that we really have to worry about is that little inclination in the back of your mind to look away or to favor someone else unconsciously, and when you don't even know you're doing it. If you're a straight male actor watching the performances for supporting actor in a miniseries or movie, you're watching Matt Bomer, who is gay, playing a gay man who is having sex in the movie.
In the nude.
In the nude. If that makes you uncomfortable, even in a way you don't necessarily realize, you turn away, to another nominee. I think that's the sort of thing that we have to worry about, because that's the sort of thing that's harder to fight and it's harder to identify, because it's not people who are. These are people who would vote for gay marriage. These are people who would march for gay marriage, probably. But it sort of icks them out. If they have to actually see it in a concrete form, like of this is what people's lives are like, and it sort of makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah, can I follow that up, Tom, quickly, and then I might head off. But I just want to say, I think the key and that's just what Daniel said, and something that I really agree with. Do you concede it's possible that it's an endemic problem we have in pop culture? The majority of people who are producing pop culture are generally white and generally male. Obviously, there are lots of women as well, but white male, right, and heterosexual. Therefore, anything that's not that is generally going to be at a disadvantage. So things that are themed about African Americans, Asians, gays, anything that's not the mainstream is going to suffer. And so if you are a white straight male and you're inclined in that way, it may not necessarily be overt homophobia. It just may be something in the back of your mind, maybe even something subconscious that inclines you away from things that are not you. And that's the problem with Hollywood. That's why we don't see Asian movies. We don't see a lot of things about African Americans, and we don't see a lot of things about just general, regular old gay people who are just living their lives, unless they're dying of AIDS. And then that's the problem. It's not just awards, it's Hollywood and the entertainment industry as a whole, which is what we're rewarding. And I think that is the key here. It's a bigger problem, and it's not just about gays. It's about a lot of, in inverted commas, minorities.
I agree with you. And Ralph, we're going to give you the final word here. And I think that to answer, to embellish Rob's point a little bit, we do know who these people are who vote. The Los Angeles Times did a study just 2-3 years ago of the Oscar voters. 70% are male, 90% are white, 60 years old is the median age. And I think that's exactly what Rob said. I think it's inadvertent, and exactly what Daniel said. These are people who would march for gay marriage. These are people who do care about the issue in an abstract way and in matters of justice, but they are tribal. They are white people who are voting for a world that reflects what they see in the mirror, and when it gets down to the sex stuff, they're icked by it. But I still think it's homophobia. I still think we caught them this year. Do you agree or not, Ralph?
I agree, again, with the sense that there is homophobia, yes, that probably had played a part. I mean, I think that's the reason Jesse Tyler Ferguson probably lost, because Al Bundy, you know, the straightest male, like the guy that everybody cheers, it's Al Bundy standing there telling his gay son, why do you or asking his gay son, why do you have to have a wedding? Why do you have to make a big thing out of it? Can't you guys just get married like somewhere small and do it yourselves or whatnot? And I think in thinking about that, if you know they are the straight 60 white males, they're probably also thinking the same thing that Al Bundy was thinking, saying, yeah, why do we have to watch this whole thing? And maybe that hurt Jesse Tyler Ferguson in that case. I mean, it could be that may be extreme, but it's just my thinking that. Yeah, it is, but again, I don't think it's. You can say that all of Hollywood is one thing just because of a certain amount of awards. Because I think there's evidence, as much evidence as there may be more evidence to back up your statement, but I think there's also evidence to the contrary that we can't just push aside. At least there's strides being made, and this year may have been a setback. And I agree with you on Behind the Candelabra. I don't really know much about it, but I thought it was just embarrassing, the whole thing that went on, and the cartoony thing, like you said. So I guess my point is, yes, I do agree that there certainly, and anything, I think, you know, there could have been people that didn't vote for Uzo just because she was black. There could have been people that, you know, didn't want to nominate Sofia Vergara because she was Latina. I mean, there's all these things that we could go back to, but my problem, again, is just with the broad overall statement that that Normal Heart lost all these big awards because all of Hollywood is homophobic. That I don't agree with. But with the statements that you've made and the way you've dissected it, I think it perfectly makes sense, and I do agree with that.
Okay, good. So Hollywood, if you're watching, we got you. We caught you doing it again this year. And if you do it again, we're going to catch you again. And we are watching, and we are vigilant, and we're not giving up because we know what awards are and we know what you're all about. Thank you for watching. Get out of here.